Good morning. It's Sunday, the 12th of April. Hope everyone had a good week. Okay, so this week was pretty eventful. Obviously, we had some headline driven moves again, and the real surprise to me is how strong equities have been and how much of the move down has been retraced. My expectation really was that we'd probably balance between the previous ranges in this sort of 23.5 to 24.5 area. But obviously that didn't happen, and we traded all the way back up into this 7-week composite high, which sort of raises the question, do we perhaps come and test the point of control of this multi-month consolidation and retest the developing years value high again? But I think my opinion here is that this move is a little bit disconnected from reality, and that we haven't yet seen the effects of high oil prices felt in markets at the very least, and probably in terms of the real economy as well. I just think these things take a little while to wash through and to make themselves felt. So I still think that while this conflict is ongoing and probably beyond, it's going to be a difficult time for risk markets, particularly with waning global liquidity and so on and so forth. So I think this move is a little bit disconnected from reality, and that markets have taken the opportunity to rally during the ceasefire. But obviously this move up means that positioning long now is, the opportunity is much diminished and the risk is much higher. So, the strait's not open yet fully, at least. Iran are claiming they can't find the mines they left in the strait a few weeks ago. And the ceasefire, I just don't see how they can reach agreement. And so I still think that boots on the ground is quite likely, so on and so forth. But we don't need to go talk about this, war situation. I just think that this move is probably has some more legs, but is probably also running out of steam somewhat. So the question is, can we trade up higher into this area? This would probably be the optimal place to look for a swing short. If I was trading equities, personally, I haven't been. I'm just looking at this to get a sense of risk appetite, really, more than anything. So that's it. We'll move on to Bitcoin. I had a really good week trading Bitcoin this week, other than missing the initial move up on Sunday night, where we just saw a passive bid step in and just push price higher. I mean, I did initially get long here. I was also short from earlier. And in the end, I got closed out of my shorts here. So we traded up on Monday into this. I mean, I know there are a lot of levels on this chart, so you're going to have to bear with me. Let's just take the indicators off, which will make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so initially on Monday, we traded into this 3-day composite low. So there's some good sort of intraday trading around this level and the 4-week composite high. And then towards the end of the session on Monday, the flow started to change a bit. Right, Saylor was obviously buying during this time. Flow started to change, so I just got short on Monday night after the New York session and rode this down into these lows here. Then my plan was to long a failed shift inside the 7-day composite, which I did. We got a bit of drop into the point of control and eventually traded up into previous month's value high, which sits around this 72.5 or something like that. That's the level 72.1, in fact. So we traded into previous month's value high here on Wednesday, and then on it's a Wednesday night. Anyway, on Wednesday into the New York session again, we saw a lot of perps positioning, trying to push price higher. Pretty easy fade here. We swept the highs, poor highs here, and then sold off. I took profit on the short here because we were trying to reclaim this value. And then on Thursday, it looked as though we had reaccepted back within this 3-day composite. So I took the short here, aiming for the 3-day composite low. Passive bid stepped in and defended around the developing month's value high, which was sitting around here at the time. And then we traded up into eventually this 2-day composite, where we'd failed last night. So my plan was to actually short this failure, but it came very late last night for me. So I just marketed out my longs upon that failure, shorted lit this morning. We've now traded back into the 3-day composite high. So we haven't seen, crucially, I think, or importantly at least, uptick in momentum upon breaking above value again. So it's not really looking likely to, elicit a trending move up if we trade up at all. It's looking more likely to be, one of these two-sided moves which we've had all week, right? So, if we do continue up, I don't really expect it to just go straight up. I think it's going to be more like this. Although we are now trading above value, there's just no real signs that it's going to be, a one-sided bullish move to the upside at the moment. Could change, but for now it's just sort of level to level trading really, and just taking each day as it comes, rather than I can sit here and say, okay, we're going to trade up to the anchored VWAP from the top on a yearly value high, but we've never done that during a bull market before, during a bear market before, to my knowledge at least. So, I looked back to 2017 and we certainly didn't do it then. Not to say it can't happen, it's just that, the probability of, I think, of us breaking value and trending up in a macro downtrend is probably quite low still. And so, being gung-ho bullish above value obviously comes with a huge amount of risk, because this could just fail and then we just trade lower. So I don't know. Having failed here, it's difficult to be bullish. This is a bearish shift of condition. I still think we could trade up, but we have to see, right? We have to see. So let's look at a couple of scenarios into this week. I'll just keep it very simple first of all. So we've obviously traded back below previous month value high now. And we've left this big selling imbalance behind. I'm going to bring the indicators back up. Right, failed at a nice day VWAP here. So this is a bearish change because we've failed to find acceptance within a previous value. Yes, we're trading at support again, but this level has already been tested, and we have this big selling imbalance, so obviously. So coming into this week, if we're going to go lower, I think this imbalance also acts as resistance. Sellers should continue to defend here. And so if there is an attempt to push higher from this 3-day composite high, and there is a passive bid supporting this area at the moment, but if we get a push into this area and it fails, possibly a short, right? Possibly. I'm just working with what we have at the moment. So a push into, we've shifted back inside the developing week and the developing month, obviously back inside previous month as well. So this is all looking, like a failure to the upside at the moment, obviously above here as well. So I think it's reasonable to anticipate more downside should we see a failure here. If so, downside targets would be the 3-day composite low, which we front ran during the week, having got above, and then possibly previous month VWAP and the 2-month point of control around 69k. So, and then the question is, do we find support around this area, perhaps at the POC? Does that interrupt the move lower? And can we trade up from there? Or is this actually just another failure above value? And do we actually just rotate all the way back to the lows? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And I wouldn't like to sort of be, I just don't know. So that's what I mean. It's just a case of being reactive and taking it day by day at the moment. But I think this is the clear short setup I would look for now. If we get a spike into this gap, get rejected somewhere around weekly value high, back under previous month, if this, this is all a clear failure here, then I think we're probably going to go towards this 3-day composite low, previous month VWAP kind of area. And then if we can reclaim this 3-day composite low, we could potentially trade up, or we could potentially come into this demand around the point of control of the range. At least on Coinbase it sits at 69k. It does vary contract by contract, which doesn't make life any easier. So on Coinbase it's here, right, at 69k. On Kraken spot it is a lot lower, I think. It's all the way down at 67k. There's a high volume node at 70. The POC is certainly not 69. There is a high volume node at 69 as well, right here. But it's not the point of control. On Binance, it is at, it's all the way down here, 60, 67 again. So it's just no consistency, which is quite unusual, I think, across these contracts. What about the perps markets? Bybit's down there. Binance also down there. So it looks like the POC is generally lower because of this consolidation over the past couple of weeks. But we do have this demand here, right? And we could fill out this imbalance into 69. So even just looking at the price action, potentially some support around 69k, and that's probably the area that needs to hold if we're gonna trade higher. I still lean higher, but just no guarantees that it's going to happen. So that's the kind of short set I would look at. I mean, it's possible that we just bottom here and trade up. I don't think it's hugely likely, but it's possible. I would like to see us come and retest lower prices. If I'm wrong here and we do just trade up, then the simpler long and the more certain one is actually on an acceptance back inside this 2-day composite. I know that's obviously some way up now, but if we can re-accept within that 2-day, it's proven to be contextually significant here. We failed, we retested as resistance and sold off. If we can re-accept back within that 2-day, then we can potentially take a long from there. And that's a sort of evergreen setup in case we ever trade up there and I'm not in a position. I don't know. I don't think I have much else to say on BTC right now. I mean, I was thinking, potentially we could trade all the way up to yearly value high, but we just haven't done it previously in a bear market. But we're kind of halfway, the move's halfway done, right? If we repeat that, then we get there. It's just difficult to be bullish above value when we're just seeing this kind of choppy grind, which is getting bonked back down. But And so for that reason, I think it's just best to keep things relatively short term. I mean, sure, you could swing long and pray, but personally, I'd just rather take short term trades that I have more certainty and comfort over. For example, like last week, I took a short here, took a long here, took a short here, took a short here, stopped out on some of it, took a long here, and that's it, right? You can just trade the rotations, and it's much less stressful than round tripping huge portions of each long, just hoping that we trade higher, which may well happen, but it's just not really my style. So I think that's it for BTC. We'll just have to see how things go. We are looking. I mean, the counter to the argument that we could probably see a lot more two-sided stuff is that all the trends are compressing, right? So I mean, let's just hit a cleaner chart. Cracking. Right, so the 90-day is capping us, the 30-day is green, obviously we're above that, and the 7 days pointing up. So we're starting to compress between 97 and 30-day VWAPs, which is essentially trend compression on a moving average basis. And so generally this sort of compression, if it continues for a bit longer, is going to lead to an expansive move, and probably a more tight trending move than we've seen in some time. We saw it here, right? We saw compression and then expansion. It's just how the market moves. I mean, this is really compression on a high time frame between the 365-day and the 90. But yeah, generally when you see this kind of compression, the market's ready to make its directional move, and needs to make a decision. So we're probably pretty close to that. I mean, given that the high time frame trend is down, I'm skeptical that this is going to break up and start trending, but it could. Right, we could trade up to yearly value high. We'll see. Okay, so what else to look at? I mean, we should probably just look at ETH next, which is also getting pretty tight here, right? Very tight compression now. Looked like it wanted to trade up. We need to get above this previous quarter VWAP. We haven't found acceptance there yet. So, again, is this the high, or can we trade up into potentially yearly value high, or at least this 9-week point of control? Well, we need to find acceptance above previous quarter's value high and yearly VWAP, if that's going to happen, right? And so far we've just wicked into those areas, and then sold off on a negative headline over the weekend. So it was okay. again, it's been sort of similar to BTC, obviously, in terms of the moves being quite two-sided. Pretty decent long here on Thursday, but yeah, unable to get above previous quarter's VWAP so far. So I think it's important that ETH holds above this previous year's value low level, which has kind of proven itself as important resistance here and important support here. So around 2150 essentially is kind of the bullish line in the sand. If we should re-accept under that, then we're probably going to go back to the lows, and that would probably coincide with BTC going lower as well. So in terms of ETH, it's kind of similar, right? We traded above value, but we haven't seen any momentum, which is always, I just think it's quite concerning for the bullish case. So I could easily see this being an important high that's already in. In terms of VWAP, we've re-accepted back in the developing week and developing month, and previous month value high held a support here around 2180-ish. So again, that's probably an important level coming into this week, 2180 for ETH. But yeah, unable to get above the developing year and previous quarter VWAP is not good immediately for the upside case. Hype looks quite concerning to me. We talked about this possibility that we make a double top into this area. And so far, that's kind of how it looks, right? We've traded into previous year value high a couple of times. Lower high here is a pretty classic double top kind of situation. So is that a double top? Is it done? Maybe. Probably a bit too early to say, but we haven't been able to accept so far in this 10-week composite. So, a couple of attempts, but no real, we haven't been able to flip that 4160 level into support. Just deviating above it a couple of times, attempted to here, looked like we had, and then just a double top so far. So unless we can get above that 4160 level and flip it into support, then POC value highs, maybe all-time highs are in play, but as it stands, that's not great. That's not great. So, the other important level here is going to be previous month value high, which lines up with this composite high. That's sort of 39.98. Well, let's call it 40. So previous month value area high. Sorry. And it aligns with that multi-day comp, which is about 10 days. So we'll just call it previous month value high. So I think that's a good line in the sand, right? We can see we had interactions with it here, pushed through, and eventually got above. If we should re-accept under that, then I think it's bad news. It would confirm that this, is probably a bearish change in the market. So bullish above, if we can find acceptance above 4160, bearish if we accept below 40, right? Then I think that would probably be potentially an area to look for a short. Obviously have this gap here that we're forming now as well, but we'll see. That's kind of how I would delineate hype right now. I think given that this could end up being a double top, if we should get back under 40, I think that would be potentially quite bearish, and you could potentially just swing short lower. But given that the trend is obviously still pointing up, that's probably a little bit premature to say. So again, you just have to sort of take it day by day and see how it goes. Right, Sol looks like absolute shit. This has actually played out quite similar to how we talked about last week. If we doesn't look like it wants to break down, but if we get back within value, we might just chop under the POC or in the lower part of this range. That's what's happened. I thought we could probably trade up, but 30 days capping us, unable to get above this point of control. Balance here for four days or so, and then we've broken down from that balance. So unless we can re-accept above 83.30 now, it looks like it could break down, doesn't it? So is that a bellwether for the rest of the market? This weakness in Sol. Sol has been down only against ETH in particular for many weeks. Worth having a look at the BTC pairs, and actually we'll do that in a minute. But going into this week now, if we can't, if we should get another attempt to push up into here and it fails, previous week value high and this 4-day composite low, that could be the start of a breakdown. So we'll see on that one. but it's not looking good spending all of this time down here. I mean, it could still trade up, right? It could, if BTCs get legs up and get some momentum, and maybe this turns into an inverted head and shoulders or something. But right now, it looks kind of shit. Sol ETH, yeah, just down only, just totally down only. Is it losing momentum? Doesn't seem to be. I mean, you arguably got some divs forming, but they can keep divving. RSI divs are pretty useless, really. So yeah, it doesn't look particularly amazing. XRP is similar, very similar, just chopping at the edge of value. So again, doesn't look very good. Lit came into previous quarter value low, had a spot position, and then took a short here earlier, which was nice because it just played out super quickly. Just return pullback, I woke up and just bonked it. Played out into this imbalance. So it needs to hold here if it's going to trade up again. I think this is an important area that we're trading in now. So we have wicked into this gap here. So can it hold here, and can we trade up higher into potentially the 90-day? It probably depends on the rest of the market, but it's not a bad area to potentially look at getting some long exposure. It's just, things are a bit uncertain right now. I think that's it for now. It's just like Fartcoin, another one. Also had this very scammy move during the week. Some hyperliquid stuff going on, and then so far we haven't been able to get above the range, right? And we haven't been able to get above or hold within this previous consolidation. So that's potentially a local top. If it can break out, then we probably trade up to this previous composite. But for now, unable to do that. So until we can find acceptance above this 195 level, I think you need to be potentially a bit bearish here, given that it's potentially acting as resistance again. So we'll see how it develops. Big selling imbalance acting as resistance now. Again, it's probably going to depend on just BTC, right? So it's all going to go together. If it goes bullish above there, at least up to this value high again, and the 90-day. If we can break that, we're probably going to trade up much higher, but not very convincing at the moment. NEAR was a good trade yesterday, just failing to hold below this three-day range that we formed. I guess it'll be 4 days now. I thought we could trade up higher. It wasn't really anything here. I thought we could at least come into this previous 2-week composite. As it was, we just filled out the gap, right? So just a sort of price action rejection off the top of that imbalance. Doesn't look particularly great now. We'll see back below that 3 days of value. So yeah, I mean, there are sort of some signs that the market might be struggling here. Render, another one, showed a lot of strength, really, relatively, having formed higher value for March than February, and then a big push up into this kind of previous area of resistance. I guess we have a multi-day comp here or something. Anyway, failed there. Is this going to reaccept back within this 4-week composite now? In which case, it's probably cooked. So yeah, there are plenty of warning signs, I would say. ZEC as well came into yearly value high, previous quarter's value high. Massive area of resistance. I mean, it's a huge rally. So, is that topped out? We obviously failed to get back within this 4-day composite here with these VWAP levels of resistance. And today we've just come and retested the recent 2 days of value on high volume. So is that done now? If so, potentially let's trade it back towards what's going to be previous week's VWAP around 325, which is a nice rotation lower if we can reaccept back within this 5 days. But for now, it's a bearish change, right? We've not been able to accept in here, kind of had 3 drives, breaking down, retesting. So it just needs to reaccept in this, and then potentially that's cooked as well. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how the week goes, but I'm just sort of neutral, really. Just neutral and taking it day by day. I think that we will ultimately end up going lower, or at least testing the lows. this naked quarterly val and potentially 2024's val potentially get a test. I think we probably have. I mean, the macro trend is obviously still totally cooked, so the probability of us trading up much higher is just lower for that reason. We'll see how it goes. I think we'll leave it there. I'll catch you next time. Cheers for now.